Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cryptid Chronicles. This is your host, Ryan Edwards, and I want to welcome you all here. Say happy evening, and hope you guys are doing well. I want to say one thing. I know I'm very appreciative of everyone that's watching this right now. Like everyone that comes on and watches live, and I know we always have the chat option with YouTube Live. If you want to go into that chat option, always talk to us. Like I love talking to you guys. And there's one thing, kind of like what people call like home cleaning things, something like that. I want to talk to you guys real quick about. I know this is a early channel. We're just starting off, but there's certain goals I want to see if we can try to achieve soon. Because right now we are at about 60 subscribers or so, and I want to see if we can make a goal to by the end of August to try to see if we can get to 100. So if anyone here is watching and you're not subscribed or anything like that, please subscribe. That really shows us that you appreciate what we're doing, what we're trying to bring out to you guys. So if you can subscribe, do it. If you guys want to share this podcast to other people, that'd be great. Like, really, my goal here is really not to try to get all these subscribers and fame and all that. It's just about sharing information. So if you guys also appreciate that stuff, I would really appreciate you guys sharing this information. But tonight it's going to be another, hopefully, a special episode because we have a special guest on tonight. We have a man named Tex Wesson. This guy, me, go pretty back past year or so. He's a great guy up from North Texas. He's had cryptid encounters. He's done research, field investigations. We met up at the Jefferson Bigfoot conference last year. Met him, met a couple other guys. He has a thing called, it used to be called Paracryptid Research, but it's now called Texas Front Porch. He has a YouTube channel, podcast, all this stuff. So real quick, before I really butcher this man's career, let me bring him on and let him speak for himself. So, hey,
Hey,
Tech,
brother. Good to see you, man.
good to see you too. So before I come up here and butcher your whole career for you, introduce yourself to everyone over here.
Well, like I said, my name's Tex Wesson, and I've been doing this critter research for oh 5 6 years now. Um, but it started earlier with me because when I was 16, I had an encounter, and but you kind of tuck that under your hat, keep it in the back of your mind, really to keep from being called crazy. Well, then years later, you find out, hey, there's other people that's had this stuff happen. And then I got to talking to some people, and here I am. I jumped in about pretty much feet first and started looking for these critters, and ended up having some more encounters and going to conferences and doing the YouTube thing, and it's been a hell of a ride. It really has, and met some fantastic people. You among them. You know, it's and the ride ain't over. We just hit the tip of the iceberg on this kind of stuff. You know, and it's fascinating. It really is, because what I found out was, even though I didn't want to believe it, that there's something else going on out there. It's not just these flesh and blood critters that you know I'd seen. There's something else, and I don't know if it's them, or I don't know if it's something that attracts the critters to this, or this other phenomenon to these critters, or what. But and that's what we've been trying to find out, because man, I've had some crazy stuff happen out there. You know, and it's more about getting awareness out there that this stuff is going on. You know, and try to open some other folks' eyes, and go, look, you got to be open minded to this stuff, because one of the problems that we have in this community is what they call it, but we're we're very cannibalistic, and by that, what I mean by that is if somebody don't agree with some somebody else's point of view, they want to just trounce all over them. You know, well, just because you haven't experienced something yourself doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just means you ain't ran across it yet. You know, so we're trying to bridge that gap between what we call the guerrilla camp and what's called the woo camp. You know, which includes the paranormal stuff and everything else. So if we can get people from both camps to be open minded enough to have an actual conversation and sit down and try to learn from each other, you know, we're going to open a lot more stuff up to us, and I think learn more, because right now we're exactly where we were when the Patterson Gimlin film came out. We don't know no more than we did when you get right down to it, as far as Bigfoot goes. And but that it's the same with every critter, and there's more critters out there than just Bigfoot. That's another thing, you know, because I mean, we've got reports of because Dogman's the big one, you know, it's out there, you know, and you got living dinosaurs that people are running across, you know. The math ain't adding up. We ain't putting two and two together and getting four. We're getting 5 or 7. So, you know,
it's like we're adding all these pieces, but it's like you can tell there's pieces missing, and you're like, okay, are these pieces being held back, or all these are stuff that no one's really researched? And that's like one thing
right,
I really appreciate you and with your group, because with me, when I first really got into this research, I was very much, I still kind of am, very much physical science, like ecology, animal science, and all that. But there's also something else to this research.
yeah,
And if it's paranormal or whatever, it's interesting parts to me. And it's like, for me, I'm willing to put a little bit of research into that because there's too many correlations to show that it's not there. Like,
right,
there's too many correlations between, like, signs of cryptids and other phenomena. Now, do they correlate? It's a possibility. But with me, saying in science is correlation does not mean causation. Just because two things are occurring doesn't mean they're causing one another.
exactly,
But it might be, maybe they are. We never know because none of us are experts. And like they teach this in like in detectives when they teach detectives. Any information is good information when you don't really have anything else to go on. Like early on in a criminal investigation, any information you can get is good information. And right now, we're in that kind of criminal ideas of like any information we can try to get for cryptids or the paranormal is going to be good. And it just lets us share that information. No matter if you're in that like woo camp or if you're in the aper camp or human camp, let's all just talk together and see what we can try to get to.
right. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard because when you when you're out there and you're looking for what you believe is a flesh and blood critter, and then you run into something that's obviously not, or you know, you got your cameras going, or you got, you know, or your recorder going, and when you get back to the house and you're reviewing your footage, and you get voices that you didn't hear, you get growls that you didn't hear, you know, or you see some kind of phenomenon on your footage that you didn't see when you were doing it, you know, or some extreme stuff, you have a time loss. Just that,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
And like even like with the Bigfoot phenomena, you have like things like mind speak and be
right.
hear like voices in your head and things like that. It's like it's all these weird aspects of like, okay, there might be something more than just like flesh and blood to this research and this field.
Yeah, because I don't know. A lot of people want to say that they've nailed it down. They know what's out there. A lot of people, well, the problem that we have is there's so many people out there that want to put their opinion out there as fact. And that's a problem, because if you're convinced that you've got it right and you're not open, you close your mind off to, it's either this way or the highway, where does that leave you? That cuts yourself off. You're chopping yourself off at the knees as far as learning more goes. And when you get out there and you're convinced that it's nothing but, flesh and blood, and then you have some of this other stuff happen to you, where does that leave you? Well, it leaves you then now you either have to crawfish and admit that, okay, well, there's something else out there, or you have to basically lie about what you found out in the brush.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there's a lot of researchers, a lot of damn good researchers, that is exactly what's happened. Because I don't know, honestly, a researcher worth their salt that hasn't ran into something that they cannot explain out in the field, but they're so afraid of what it will do to their reputation that they built, they won't talk about it.
Yeah, like I know there's like researchers out there like myself that are like very strong. It's a physical animal. These are physical creatures, and stuff happens to them,
Right.
but they just don't talk about it. So it's like you're holding back information and might overall help the field. Like even with me, there's certain aspects of like with Bigfoot and like even like the dogman phenomenon, for instance. I've talked about that one. That one, I used to be like very much like, okay, it's a physical creature, it's a physical animal, but now with certain research, I'm like, it can't be. So like I have to change my thinking, and that's
Yeah.
something that not a lot of people are willing to do. In general, they always have that ego in them. They want to say they're right. They're right. They don't want to change their minds. But that's just research in general. That's just studying anything in real life. Sometimes you have to change your mind when the data shows you're wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with, call it mainstream academia. You know, they're so afraid to admit that they were wrong on something that they continue to put out wrong information.
Yeah,
Well, what that's going against everything that they got into doing what they do in the first place for, you know.
yeah,
But unfortunately, the truth scares the hell out of people, you
yeah,
know. And there's a there's a lot of us out there now that are trying to get the truth out there, and it's tough because you do take a beating, you do get called crazy, you do get called this and that and the other thing. But I mean, it's like I've said this 1,000 times. Hell, I wish my first encounter had been a Bigfoot. It'd been a hell of a lot easier to explain
yeah,
instead of dog man. You know, especially back, it was like 81 or 82 when it happened.
yeah,
The term dog man didn't even exist. A
yeah,
lot of people call it was a werewolf, but I wish it had been a dadgum Bigfoot. Like, I mean, because at least people would. I think people would have been more likely to believe that, and they wouldn't be talking about you
it's a
know
werewolf. Like,
people got told that a damn werewolf existed.
yeah. And actually, speaking about your first sighting, like I know probably people watching this probably hopefully know your first sighting. I know I do myself, but anyone that's not watching that doesn't know your sighting, but please talk about it right now. Just go into as much detail as you can remember. There's like where it was, when it was, and all that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Um, I was 16 and I lived out in the country, and I grew up. I was hunting and fishing and camping and trapping all my life. From a very young age, I was going up by myself. To people talk about turning their kids loose, y'all come back when the street lights come on. Well, that didn't quite work out yonder, but it's like come back at sundown, or I might be gone a couple of days as long as I told my parents about it, and gave them, I'm going to be over here camping for a couple of days. I'll grab a couple of cans of beans and off I go. Well, anyway, I had this place that I like to hunt about a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles from the house. And I've been out there hunting, and I was coming back. The sun hadn't went down yet. We lived down in a valley. It had went down below the one side of the hill, but it hadn't been, went down off the horizon yet. So it was just pretty much daylight. I was on a white gravel road. I was walking up that bordered our place. We had 20 acres out there. And I was just about to jump the fence. I was just about to crawl through the fence and make a beeline for the house, take a shortcut. And this thing bust out of the brush on my left-hand side and ran across the road in front of me and dove over our barbed wire fence and when it hit the ground, it ran across. It was on two legs. And when it dove over the fence, it went down to all fours and hit the tall grass. And then I saw the grass move 10, 15 yards and it just disappeared. Well, I had a choice to make. I could either follow it into the tall grass where I was fixing to go, or I'd, take the long way home. Well, I ain't gonna follow this thing into the tall grass. So I took the long way home, and the whole walk is kind of a blur. But I remember turning the corner because I had to go up this road and then across the front of our place and then down our driveway on the other side of our place. And I remember I had just turned that corner up there. And I remember thinking, and I had a couple of rabbits hanging on my belt and everything. I had a little 410 shotgun with me. So I didn't have any rounds for it. And I remember thinking, I said, well, hell, I got a 3-foot club. And maybe I'll get a swing at him if he comes at me. Of course, a little 410 shotgun, unless you stick it down his throat, I didn't think it was going to it might just piss this critter off.
It'll just tickle it.
Yeah. So I got home and I walked in the house, walked in the back door, walked in the kitchen, set my gun down on the kitchen table, which is a big no-no in my house. No guns in the kitchen. And I pretty much collapsed in the kitchen chair. Well, when Mama was in the kitchen, I don't remember what she's doing. She's washing dishes, cooking, I don't know. And she turned around and I think she was going to scold me for having my gun. What are you doing? And when she saw me, she goes, "You're white as a ghost. What's wrong with you?" And I tried to tell her. Honest to God, I tried to tell her. But I just literally could not speak. Well, my sister lived on the same property about 40, 50 yards away. She called my sister. My sister come over. And it took them almost an hour to calm me down enough where I could talk. And I told them what happened. And they tried to tell me, well, maybe you saw a big dog or a wolf or, some homeless guy or something. And, your imagination took over. And I stuck to my guns. No, this is what I saw. He was 25, 30 feet in front of me. And so I stuck to my guns over the years. And they finally, they're like, well, you saw what you saw. I don't know what it was, but you saw what you saw. Well, that put me on my heels for about 6 months. I didn't go anywhere. It scared me to death. I wasn't going back out in the woods. I wouldn't go fishing. I wouldn't go camping. I wouldn't go hunting. I wouldn't do nothing. If I had to go down at the barn and take care of the animals, I was loaded for bear. And if I had to go, we had what a lot of people call a booger light. And that's a lot of people live out in the country. They'll put a street light in, on their property around the house. So they'll have light. But that's all we had But if I had to go to if it was after dark and I had to go to my sister's house, or I was over at my sister's house, I had to come back home. It was at a dead run. I wasn't no messing around. Well, that went on for, like I said, about 6 months. I finally just got mad. I felt like I was being bullied. And I thought, I'm not going to let this. If it wanted to kill me, it could have. So I decided I'm not going to let this thing keep me from doing what I love to do. So I started going back out a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. It wasn't easy. I was still scared, but I didn't see anything. I didn't run into anything. So I kept going. I kept going. I kept going, and finally got kind of back in the swing of things, what I used to do. And then I guess it's going on a year later. I was going out to that same place that I was telling you I like to hunt. And this place was phenomenal, man. It was one half of this old boy's place. And I think he had a couple of thousand acres. Half of it he turned into a hayfield. The other half he didn't do nothing with. And it was so dead-gum thick that you had to travel the game trails. But it would open up into these clearings. And these clearings would be anywhere from the size just enough to put a tent up to a footprint of a small house. And it was you may have a scrub oak in there or a mesquite, but mainly it was covered just by prairie grass, which is about 12 inches tall. Perfect for camping. But anyway, there was a deadfall that had fallen across the fence, and I got in the habit, I'd just run up that deadfall and jump over, and then I'd, start hitting the game trails. I was just about to run up that deadfall, and I heard something, or what I thought was somebody walking around in the woods. And there was a set of twins that lived on the other side of this place that hunted it. I thought maybe it was, them. And I hollered out, I said, "Hey, who's out there?" And it stopped. I said, "Hey, if that's one of y'all, David, Doug, if that's one of y'all, let me know." And it just shifted its weight. I said, "Look, if that's one of y'all, if that's, whoever's out there, holler at me." Shifted its weight again. I said, "Look, if you don't say something, I'm going to shoot." Nothing. So I popped around off up in the air, and all hell broke loose. Sounded like a bull coming through the trees. I ain't proud, man. I tucked tail and I run. I didn't look back. I ran the whole way back to the house. If this thing was fixing to snatch me up, because, at this point, I'm thinking I'm going back to what I saw, in my head. Nothing ever happened. I made it all the way back to the house, and that put me on my heels for a little bit, but not near as long as it did the first time. I never had another encounter. But this critter that I saw, at the time I put it about 6.5 feet tall. But several years ago, I was walking around and work with a buddy of mine, and I was telling him what happened. He goes, "Well, Tex, how big was this thing?" I said, "Well," it wasn't no bigger than that doorway there. He I never will forget it. He put his hand on my chest and stopped me and said, "Those are 8-foot doors." So this critter had to be about 7.5 feet tall. And it didn't even dawn on me till then how big it was, really. And it had, like I said, it was on 2 legs. The thighs on this thing were massive. Now, a lot of people talk about backward facing legs. But what I remember, and I think a lot of this is, I think a lot of people see this. So they see this and they misidentify it as backward facing legs. The feet were long and they were real narrow at the heel. And when he was running across the road in front of him, he was up on his toes. And it gave it the look of he had a hawk, that turned backwards. But it wasn't. It was just his heel. And he was covered in hair, of course, but it wasn't like real bushy, shaggy hair. It was it was long, it was about 6 inches long, but it was straight and it wasn't real thick. You could see the muscles underneath it, underneath the hair. It would hang down off his arm, because the image I had frozen in my head was, and I said I can sit down and draw it. And when he was about halfway across the road in mid stride, he turned his head and he growled at me. And that's when I got to see his mouth and his tongue. And one thing that stuck out to me, and there's an old wives' tale. If you want to find a smart dog, if you're looking for a dog, you want to find a smart dog, get one with black in his mouth. Kind of like the chows have and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of dogs don't have a solid black tongue or a solid black mouth. It'll be pink and black mottled, And that's what this critter had. Pink and black mottled tongue and mouth. And I know a lot of people that see these critters think they say they had a mouthful of gnarly looking teeth. Well, this one didn't. They're just canine looking teeth. The snout wasn't long and pointed like a wolf snout. It was shorter and it was blunt. Picture a boxer snout, but longer. Okay.
Almost like a pit bull or like a mastiff almost. Like it's almost
yeah.
Like a
mastiff is
boxy muzzle.
Yeah. And his eyes, a lot of people talk about seeing, they were yellow or they were gold or they were amber or they were red. They were just brown eyes, just like a dog, most dogs.
Yeah.
And I say that the hands were human looking, but a few years ago, I saw him described as more raccoon-like.
Yeah, like many eyewitnesses describe like raccoon-like hands.
Right. And I think that's probably what this one had instead of what I call human. But the fingers were long, and they did have claws. They weren't like 6 inches long, or they were just, long nails, thick, long nails.
Just long, something like that.
Right. So the chest, he had a big old barrel chest, real slim hips, and like I said, huge thighs. He was black, little silver or gray mixed into his coat. And starting at his ears, they weren't sticking up, pointed and everything. They were laid back like an old horse or a dog they'll get upset and they'll pin them ears back. And a lot of, see a lot of pictures and they'll be set high up on the head. Well, this one, they were kind of lower on the head, and like I said, they were pinned back. And I called it a mane for a long, long time, starting right at his hairline and his ears, going back over his head and down his back in a V shape, over his shoulders and down his back. And he looked like, and I just thought it was a thick mane between his shoulders, or where his shoulders were. But I've seen pictures of these things and that people seen, and they started calling it like a hump. Not as big as a Bramer or a buffalo, but the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
That may be very well what this thing had, because it was kind of, it did look that way. I just called it a mane at the time. But fast forward years and years later, when I started talking about this stuff, I was talking to a young lady named Danielle Stedman. And I hate that her channel's defunct now. It's still out there. It was Dogman Diaries. I got a hold of her. And she started helping me put things together. She started asking me all the right questions. Well, what did anything happen strange before, or between the encounters and before the encounters and all that kind of stuff? I said, well, not that I remember. Well, did you have any pets go missing? Did you hear any reports of that kind of stuff? I said, well, about a year before I saw the thing, we had a dog come up missing, and the only way we found it was we started smelling him, and he was underneath the house. Well, I had to go in the house and drag him out, and it looked like somebody had held him up by his front legs and just gutted him. And then I found out that these critters, for some reason, have a tendency to kill dogs that are around a property and throw them underneath the structure, I guess to hide them or something. I don't know. But we would hear stories from around, from the other farmers and ranchers and stuff, about a mare drop a foal and she'd get tore up and it'd go missing, or they'd find it all tore up and whatever. Same thing with a calf, lambs, anything. And it always got blamed on either a pack of wild dogs or a big cat in the area. And we didn't think no different. We didn't think any different back then. My daddy told me that the dog probably got in a fight with a bobcat. I didn't know any better. Daddy knows more than I do. So, but you put all that stuff together, and then you get a pattern of he was in the area a lot longer than what I had just seen him and encountered him. Because I think I encountered him the second time when I just heard him. I think it was probably him charging me out of the brush. Can't say for sure. I never looked back.
Yeah.
But
most people wouldn't though.
Well, he probably did. I'm telling you, man. I mean, I don't know. I still get goosebumps talking about it, especially when I go into real detail about it. It kind of bugs me a little bit still.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that happened to me, and it scared me so dadgum bad. And that's one of the driving forces behind our channel too. Is giving these people that have these encounters that get traumatized, because, and I've said this 1,000 times, it breaks my heart when I hear about these people that have these encounters and say, I'll never go out in the woods again, or I'll never go fishing again, I'll never go hunting again, I'll never do this. And I don't believe that these things are just waiting to murder you, hiding behind every tree out there.
Yeah.
Truth is, if you've ever been camping at a state park or a national park, or you grew up in an area that had woods around and stuff like that, not only these critters, but the Bigfoot and things were probably around. They probably watched you and you never knew it. I have a lot of friends that they hunted all their life just like me. And one of their first questions is, when I start talking about this stuff, they're like, well, I've been out in the woods hunting all my life. How come I never saw one?
Yeah.
My first question back to them is, well, were you looking for them? Well, no. Well, there you go. Because these things are masters of their environment. They can take 2 steps into the trees and poof, they are gone. And I'm not talking about walking through a portal or anything else. We're talking about physical creatures. But they know how to use the natural camouflage that they have available, because their life depends on it. And if you don't believe me, camouflage is that easy. I'm a vet. I could hide a 51-ton tank in a stand of trees and have people walk by it. So, if you want to really see how experts use camouflage, go watch snipers in training. Go watch Army snipers in training, because they would literally disappear, and you'll step on them. And it's just for somebody that's, hell, we did an experiment one time with a buddy of mine out in the brush. He was wearing bright colored clothes. There was just some tall grass behind me. I turned my back and I said, I had the camera. I said, all right. I said, pick your place and hide. I'm going to try to find you. And I turned around and I panned the camera back and forth, letting the audience try to find him. And I said, all right, stand up. He was right in front of me. So it's easier than people think to lose something out in the trees and in the brush.
Yeah, because our eyes aren't adapted to that.
Mm-hmm.
We're adapted to being in homes, living in cities, being used to stuff like that. We're not used to having to look for predators or anything like that. We're used to having to look in woods. So it's something that we've kind of lost, and no wonder you don't see these things. Like what I always tell people that go in the woods, you're being observed before you ever realize you're being observed.
Oh yeah.
That's what regular animals do. Like bears, coyotes, deer. You hear them before you ever see them. That's what any animal, and they'll see you before you ever see them.
And the first instinct to any animal, a prey animal especially, or even predators, they're not going to run off. They're going to freeze. And what we've found out about this, I mean, I've almost stepped on rabbits, and if you've ever been quail hunting,
yeah,
there ain't a guy out there or a person out there that's been quail hunting that ain't walked up on flushed out a covey of quail and scared the crap out of them, because they were so close. But these other critters, Bigfoot, Dogman, they get still. They'll purposely stay still, and you won't see them. A lot of people say, how many reports have we had that? Well, I thought it was a stump till it walked off.
Yeah, so many witnesses have talked to me like, "Hey, I thought it was just a stump in the middle of the field until it stands up."
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. Like I remember, like with observation, there was one time me and my buddies were walking in the park near here down San Antonio. Like we were walking, I'm like, hey, you see those deer up there about 10 yards into the wood line? And they're like, wait, what? It took them like 20 minutes just to see them. I'm like, guys, because you guys aren't looking. Not a lot of people have that observation anymore. They're just focused on what's whatever in front of them and not what's around them. And
yes, sir.
The people that are observant, those are the people that get these eyewitness accounts because you're looking, but a lot of times you're not even looking for it. It just kind of comes upon you.
Yep. Yeah. And then when you get into this stuff, and then you, like we was talking, you start having these other phenomenon happening at the same time. It just throws a big old monkey wrench into the works. I've got friends that I respect the hell out of that claim to communicate with these things on a regular basis and by mind speak or whatever. And my concern for these folks, and it's a legitimate concern, is and my first question to all of them is, how do you know it's Bigfoot that you're talking to?
Yeah.
And 99% of them answer me back the same way. Well, they told me it was. And if you do any paranormal research at all, Paranormal 101, spirits are going to lie to you.
Yeah.
My concern is, what if it's something pretending to be what you're trying to find, just to get their foot in the door with you.
Yeah, to try to make a connection, just to get
Right.
close to you. It's like back when I was younger, I did a little bit of paranormal research, and it's like the step like what they studied were like demonic possession. It's we
Right.
have the I think it's infestation, oppression, then possession. You have all these steps. So what if these beings are just trying to do the same thing? Get
Right.
the door, then they start ruining your life.
Yep. That's our concern, and we've put together one heck of a team over yonder on the channel, and we don't know. We the thing about it is we don't all have the same views on everything,
Yeah,
but that's key because, like I said earlier, just because you don't agree with somebody's views on stuff or you haven't had the same experience they have, doesn't mean it didn't happen, you know. And we've got Jason McLean over there. He's a biblical paranormal investigator. He looks at everything from a biblical worldview, and very intelligent feller. Don't tell him I said that.
yeah,
But and then we've got Bob Van Buren, which he's more behind the scenes, but he's had his own encounters. One very recent. We went and did a paranormal investigation up in Mineral Wells, Texas, at arguably one of the most haunted places around, and he got scratched. They left an A in the middle of his back and called him a cheater. We was playing poker,
mhm,
and he was standing behind what was supposed to be the gambler's chair. And but then we've got uh, Randy, which is he Randy was in he's retired Army. Now he was doing paranormal investigations up around DC. He did all those Civil War battlegrounds and all that kind of stuff for years. And he's also our tech guy. And he tends to be we kid around. We use him as live bait out in the field. But we got y'all. I think most everybody knows him about Bigfoot Michigan Rob,
yeah.
and he is one of the only. He's only the second person that I've ever met personally that not only saw a Bigfoot but had it vocalized at him when he saw it, and that sent him down a whole new path of life, you know. And then we've got our most recent additions. We got Jessica Jones, which is an accomplished, celebrated remote viewer. She's done work for the government, you know. In fact, she did a show last night that before she did the show, after she put out what she was going to do, because what she'll do, she's been remote on our channel. She's been remote viewing these supposed cryptid attacks and all this kind of stuff. And she remote viewed the moon landing.
Hmm.
And she got a heads up to watch what she says on her show last night. She could not go into detail. She was told not to reveal everything that she saw.
Oh wow.
So it's not a game, folks. This is some serious stuff. And but she got basically slapped on the wrist. Watch what you say. And our newest member, Kristen, she's actually Jessica's research partner. Now, Kristen had a Bigfoot encounter about the same age I was when I had my dogman encounter. She went on to get into this stuff. She's had several encounters since. Her and Jessica were out in the field with some other folks and documented, filmed two of their crew walking in and out of a portal. Their heat signatures disappeared and reappeared. This stuff is real, folks, but we don't know what the heck is going on out there. You know, and that's what we're trying to do, is unravel all these knots, because we've been cramming all this stuff that's happened out in the woods into the Bigfoot box, as we say, and calling it all Bigfoot, but it ain't all Bigfoot. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to take these little things out of the box and going, okay, well, maybe this is this, and separate them. Because I honestly believe that there are pure flesh and blood creatures out there that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly believe that there's other phenomena around them. I know, I've witnessed it. But I don't think they're all the same thing. I think we got some things out there that are pretending to be Bigfoot. Because if you think about it, if somebody walks up and tells you, man, I saw this 8-foot dark thing with red eyes out in the woods when I was camping. Oh, it must have been a Bigfoot. If that same person had walked up to you and said, man, I was sleeping last night in my room and this dark figure with red eyes walked in my bedroom. No, it must have been a demon. You know? So the only thing changed was at the location. It was the same phenomenon.
Yeah.
So a lot of people need to rethink what they're seeing out in the woods.
Yeah, like that's the thing that I love about you, Tex, and your team, is that, like, I think, for instance, last week we had a guest on, Nate Brislin. When me and him, we talked about, like, the science behind cryptozoology,
Right.
the zoology, paleontology, and all that. But then there's more to it. And like the Cryptid Chronicles here, I'm not here to just agree with what's just one side of this whole discussion. I want all sides. Like,
Right.
I'll have people that have all these different viewpoints, because like you said earlier, you don't want just one viewpoint, because then you really don't get to the truth. You have your version of the truth, not what's really out there that's happening. Like, there's certain people out there that, like, won't discuss the other side because they think it's either too fantastical or it's just not quantifiable. Like, with me,
Right.
paranormal phenomena exists. I know it does, but, like, it's so unquantifiable, I just don't do the research into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, I think Carl Sagan said it himself, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you don't see it's there doesn't mean it's not there. And, like, that's kind of the funny thing with all this research, is that there's so many things going on, and there's a lot of stuff we're not seeing, but some people do and some people don't, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there.
Right. Yeah, it's a mess, man. I tell you. And you touched on something earlier, and I think people really need to realize this. Even the people that, because you go to these conferences and everything, and a lot of them are advertised as, Bigfoot experts or whatever. Sometimes that goes to these people's heads and they believe themselves being an expert.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, folks. There are no experts in this field. So.
Yeah. And it's like, with this, is like, you're not an expert, because unless you have, like, a Bigfoot or dogman body in your backyard, you're not an expert. All this is, like, I like to make the jokes. Yeah, cryptozoology is the science of unknown animals. It's the science of speculation. It's the science of making theories and seeing if they're all correct. It's not about making hypotheses beforehand. It's about just collecting the data. And it's like one thing I love talking to, like, witnesses like yourself and researchers. We have to bring all this data together and see what we come to the conclusion. Like with Jason, his idea of like the puzzle pieces, like how you
Mhm.
pull the pieces together to form a puzzle. But if you're missing certain pieces, and if people are holding certain pieces back, you'll never get to the solution. And that's
Exactly.
why we need these discussions, like bridge the gap, like what you do yourself, like bridge the gap between like the woo camp and like the scientific camp. And there's a viewpoint, like with me, yes, there is unknown phenomena out there, the paranormal and all that. Doesn't necessarily say it's unscientific. What if it's a science we really don't understand yet? What if it's
Right.
just stuff that are so beyond our process of thinking because we don't realize just how truly small we are and how much we don't know truly. And
Right.
it's kind of that anthrocentric viewpoint of the universe that we are perfect beings and that we are the center of everything, but we are not. We don't know everything, and cryptozoology really shows that. The paranormal really just demonstrates how much in this world we really don't know.
Yeah, we've as humans we've got an arrogance about us, about being, like you were saying earlier, numero uno at the top at the food chain, and we ain't.
Yeah,
If you go out in the brush and you think you're at the top of the food chain, you are dead wrong, and you might end up that way.
yeah,
You know, you got these people that I've floors me every time I see somebody get gored at you under Yellowstone Park getting out to take a selfie with a buffalo, you know, and I'm like, these aren't pets. These are wild animals. They're unpredictable. It's the same thing that we're dealing with here. You can call them whatever you want, but when it comes down to it, we're all animals. They are wild animals. Whether
yeah,
I don't care if you believe they're offshoot of humans or an ape or whatever. They're wild animals and they're unpredictable. Are
yes,
they are they mean? They can be. They can be. It's like when you get into the whole 411,
yeah,
everybody keeps trying to nail down, it to one phenomenon that's happening. I don't think it is at all. It,
yeah.
it's, it,
It
it, you
has to be
know,
a mix. Like it has to be.
it's several different things causing these things, you know. And but do these cryptids are they part of us? I certainly wholeheartedly believe they are. You
Yeah,
know, because you run across one that has, God forbid, been wounded in the past and has a bad attitude towards humans, or just having a bad hair day, or is hungry and sees an easy target. You know,
it'll take it.
yeah,
Like with me, I've dealt with eyewitnesses and people out there that research these, and they're like, "Oh, they aren't monsters in the woods." I'm like, "Yeah, they're not. They're wild animals." But then there's certain people that come at it like, "Well, they're sweet. They're cuddly. Bigfoot is here to help you. They're guardians of the forest and all that." Well, I'm like, they're wild animals. It doesn't matter if it's a deer, a wolf, a bear, a Sasquatch, a dogman. They are wild animals that run on instinct. If you are in their way, they'll do whatever they have to get you out of the way.
yep,
And like certain things were like the dogman phenomenon. They show like a high aggression, like weirdly high aggression that's not natural. Like I've
yeah,
never heard really a sighting of them not trying to kill you or chase you away or scaring people. But like with Bigfoot, you always have sightings of them just walking away or just meandering through the woods, and other things were like the Black Panther sightings and other cryptids. You have that, but with other like things like Dogman, they're always aggressive. They always want to get you and things like that. And it kind of just shows you just how aggressive these creatures are because they are just wild
right,
animals. Like you wouldn't let your daughter go poke a bear with a stick.
right,
You should let your family member go out there if you think there's a Bigfoot in the woods because even if it's a nice docile creature, if that family member gets in its way, either if it's injured or in between, God forbid, in between it and its young,
yeah,
someone's going to get hurt or killed, like with this whole missing 411 phenomenon.
yep. And let me use this as an example. If you believe these things are good natured and they want to help you, that's fine. You can believe what you want to. I'm not going to say anything about that. That's your belief, okay?
Yeah,
and I respect it. But the false assumption that these things will not hurt you is not the you're cutting yourself off. I mean, because you
It's not the most
okay,
logical deduction.
yeah, okay. So you take a dog that you've had for years. She has a litter of pups. You go stick your hand and grab one of them pups. She may or may not bite you.
Yeah,
Okay, it's the same thing with these critters. It's a roll of the dice.
yeah,
It's like you said, don't poke the bear.
yeah.
You
Like
know,
one thing I use with people is like these things are wild animals. Like think of all the people that have exotic pets. I remember the whole story of Travis the chimp. This chimp
hmm
was raised by this woman, and she thought this chimpanzee was her kid. Soon enough, it ripped off her friend's face and tried to kill her.
right,
Like these are wild animals, no matter if they're like raised around people, they're still wild animals, and even more extreme with the creatures that weren't raised around people. Yes, like with the Bigfoot, things like that, yes, they seem human like and all that, but that necessarily doesn't show that they are benevolent out there to help you and protect you. That's an okay belief set. But the second that belief set gets other people hurt or injured because they believe that's true, that's where I kind of have to say, well, no, 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 these things are just wild animals. They're not monsters out there to kill and hurt you. But
right.
if they are necessary to hurt or kill you, if necessary, they will do it. Like what you said about that with a dog that you've owned. That dog knows you, it loves you, but if you get between it and its young, it's going to bite you, maybe.
And folks, don't get us wrong. We're not saying that don't go out in the woods or
No,
anything like that. What we're saying is, if you believe what we're saying and you believe that these critters are out in the woods, which they are, treat them with the same respect that you do other wild animals, and you'll be fine.
yeah,
You've been fine if you've been camping all these years and you've been fine. You're 9 times out of 10 going to keep being fine. you know,
yeah,
um, it's just like take your standard precautions, just like you do in bear camping in bear country. Put your food up. Do this. Do that.
yeah.
Don't antagonize them. Don't try to take selfies with these critters. They're your friends.
Yeah. Like one thing I always tell people is like don't be afraid of the woods. Don't be afraid of these creatures.
Right.
Always be cautious. Don't
Yeah.
let fear take you over, but don't also let curiosity take over sometimes. 'Cause curiosity
Right.
can get you hurt. Like don't be that cat that says, "Oh, what's a car?" and then you get ran over. Don't be that cat.
Yeah.
Be a person that says, "Hey, what's that car? It looks bigger than me. Let me get out of its way."
Yep.
Be smart about this. Be cautious, but don't let fear take you over. Because then, why even be in the woods in the first place? Like
Right.
what I said earlier, like the people that go and hunt and fish and don't do that anymore because they saw a Bigfoot or a dog man or a Black Panther or anything like that. That's kind of saddens me as well because don't let your fear take over. Just let that fear kind of become a tool. Let it help you be more observant in the woods. Let it be help you to be more cautious when you're out there. But just don't let the fear take over.
Right. It's you can go out there and have a good time, and nothing's going to happen to you most of the time if you're smart about it. But don't be like you said. Don't be scared, and don't let us scare you away from enjoying what you do.
Yeah. Like I saw just right there in the comments, Jeff Adams. That's a very good point. Don't go by yourself and always bring a gun. Always have that caution. It's like back in the day when you watch like survivalist shows like Les Stroud or Bear Grylls, they always say like be precautious, be ready for anything, be ready for a survival situation. That's just simple common sense when you go out in the woods and do
Right.
like field research and all that. Like, don't become afraid, but also don't be a babe in the woods. I like to say,
Yeah.
always be ready for anything.
Well, it's just use common sense.
Yeah,
That'll get you out of most situations. You know, let's see, 3 people in my area have been killed by animal attacks and other suspicious. Very close. I put the word out because I'm crazy.
and that's something that does occur. Like, if sometimes there are like suspicious animal attacks, and all these correlated with cryptids. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. Like I know recently there's been a lot of like dog attacks around the country.
Yep.
And they come back as like, well, DNA shows it's canine, so they immediately say, oh, it's a wolf or it's a dog or something like this. But if you look at the attack patterns, it's not canine in appearance, not at least a
Right.
wild dog.
Right.
So you have to suspect, okay, is there something else? Like I
Well,
know,
it's like that. There's a case up in Lipan, Texas that we're trying to look into, and this old boy went out walking out in the country, and they found him dead a few hours later. But the only marks on the body were his throat was ripped out, not cut, ripped out. There was no defensive wounds on the body, nothing like that. Well, the sheriff's department and the ME said it was a big cat. The wildlife department and their contracted tracker said it was not a big cat. There was no sign of a big cat anywhere in the area, but they couldn't say what it was.
yeah,
So you have stuff like that happen, you know. Well, I got news for you. That's going to happen. I had somebody tell me that they don't go out in the woods because they feel safer. But they go to raves and stuff, and they feel safer there than they do. I said, "Boy, you got more unpredictable animals around you then than you do everything out in the woods. You're
yeah.
safer. You're safer out in the woods than you are at a rave or a party or something."
Yeah, and with people like that, I just say, well, it's simply because it's almost like it's alien territory to people nowadays. The
Yeah, it is.
outdoors is seen as other. It's weird. It's peculiar. It's a place that we don't go into anymore. It's another area that's just wild and we don't go into. But doing studies and research into like cryptids, you kind of realize the outdoors. Yes, it's dangerous, but it's as dangerous to go outside in a big city at night. It can be almost the same amount of danger. Just because something's different doesn't necessarily mean everything out there wants to kill you.
Right.
Not doesn't work like that. But just have that precaution, like what we said earlier. And like the woods, if you go out there, a lot of people that go out there a lot. Like me personally, I live in a big city, so I can't really go out in the woods as much as I want to. But
Right.
people like yourself that do field research, those are the people I really do look up to in this field because you guys are out there on boots on the ground doing this research, getting all these eyewitness accounts that are really important to this field.
Yeah, and there's there's people out there that you just talk about looking up to, and I appreciate that. Um, there's folks in this field that they're gonna they want to find the truth, and they're going to
Yeah,
put themselves in harm's way to do it. Now they're going to be smart about it. Shelley Covington, Montana. This woman is one of the bravest women on the planet. She'll spend she'll do things that I guarantee you 99% of these Bigfoot researchers, and I'm one of them, don't do. She'll go out there and she'll spend not days, but weeks out in the brush alone. You know, she'll be in places where she has to carry a satellite phone because there ain't no contact out there, you
Yeah.
know. And now she's very scientifically minded,
Yeah.
you know. She's an excellent tracker, and she's an excellent survivalist. But like I said, she's one of the bravest, not only just women, one of the bravest people on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. Because
Yeah.
she'll go out there and do stuff that a lot of us won't, and I respect the hell out of her for that. Jessica's another one. She'll go out there and she'll spend days and stuff out there looking for the stuff that she knows that could possibly she might not be seen again. You know,
Yeah.
and she's on the flip side of the coin from Shelley Covington, Montana. You know, she investigates this other phenomenon that's going on out there.
Yeah.
You know, and confronts it and documents it. And my hat's off to them, really. And there's a lot of researchers that don't have these big channels, that don't have, or on Discovery or History TV or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, that do a lot of great work. And they deserve all of our respect,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, that's the thing that like a lot of these like unknown names, a lot of these researchers are just getting new into the field. Like
Right.
I kind of put myself in there, well, a little bit myself, and like people like you, Tex, that just your name's out there, but it doesn't have that as much uh, forte or as much like name recognition as someone like a Lowen Coleman or a Ken Gerhard or a Lyle
Right.
Black. It doesn't necessarily mean you're like low on the totem pole or anything like that. Like we do great research. It's just that some people are just more out there than others. It's kind of a funny thing with this research because
Yeah.
it's like I remember I was talking to Cliff Berkman back at the Alabama Bigfoot conference, and like he was talking about like certain TV shows, like I think it was like Mountain Monsters and like things like that, and he brought up the idea of like, okay, yeah, professional wrestlers, like WWE, things like that, like not fake wrestling, but the people that get older
Right.
fame, fortune. Then you have like old fashioned Greco Roman wrestling and like things like that. That's real wrestling. The TV shows and things like that. That's like sometimes the WWE. They're like fake wrestling stuff that gets out of limelight. But then there's the people behind the scenes that are actually doing a lot of research and have boots on the ground and have years and years of uh, studies and hundreds and thousands of eyewitness reports. But
Right.
sometimes those people just don't get recognition. And
Right.
hopefully, in the next couple of years, these people can try to get that recognition that they do deserve.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Don't bypass somebody just because they don't have a lot of followers on YouTube. Look at their stuff.
Yeah,
Judge them. Judge them that way. If you like what you see, a lot of them put out some good stuff, man. I've seen some great pictures come out of some, you know, these smaller researchers and stuff. You know,
yeah,
but
and
and it's. I think it's we have a responsibility. We've decided to do this and get on these platforms. We have a responsibility to get the truth out there. We don't need to embellish stuff. If we're telling a story, say it's a story. You
yeah,
know, and a lot of people don't understand that they hear all these outlandish or fantastic encounters. You're like, "Oh, this is cool," and I had an encounter, but he just ran across the road in front of me, so nobody be interested in it. You are dead wrong,
yeah,
because that's where we're gonna. That's where we're picking up the most information is these quote unquote normal encounters of road crossings and stuff, because those are what happens the most. That's
Yeah.
that's where we're going to pick up behavioral data. That mm, just because Bigfoot didn't jump on your John Deere and drive away doesn't mean you don't need to share your encounter. We want those. We want those quote unquote normal encounters.
Yeah, because it's like 90% of the field are those normal encounters of like crossing the road or just seeing it in
Mm-hmm.
the tree line. Not everyone has a passing Inman film or a
Right.
LBL story or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what we want to get. We want to get as many sightings as we can. As long as they're true, that's what we really want. Because it doesn't matter if it's a creature ripping apart a cow or something just walking across the road. An eyewitness
Right.
is an eyewitness account. It helps show, yeah, behavioral data. Where are they? Is there migrational patterns? Are there? Can you detect one individual? Because every like Bigfoot in one area looks all the same. So it's like, okay, maybe that's the same individual.
Right.
Any data is important to this field. No matter if you think it's not fantastical or if you think it's too fantastical to be believed, any data is appreciated.
Yeah. It's. I just I think most. I think the most important thing is that people come forward.
Yeah,
There's platforms like yours and mine and Jessica's and a lot of other platforms out there and a lot of people you can talk to if you've had these encounters that we're not just going to share it all over social media. We're not going to, throw your name out there and stuff like that. That's not what we're here for.
yeah,
If you want to, if you don't have anybody to talk to about your encounter and it's bothering you, or you just want to get a second opinion on it or whatever, shoot us an email. You know, let us know. We'll be happy to talk to you. I know I'm not, and by talking to, I'm not talking about having you on the show. People, and I know you're the same way. You don't, these people don't have to come on your show.
no,
You know, you're a scientific guy. You want the data,
yeah,
you know, and that's what that is. So if you have an encounter, reach out to Ryan or myself or somebody that you trust, and talk to them because we can help you get your head wrapped around of what happened to you. We'll try, even if it's just an ear to bend. That helps a lot.
yeah. And
being
like
able to talk about it
even
to
with
somebody.
me, like half the times when I talk about eyewitness accounts, I almost always use pseudonyms unless someone tells me not to. Like I'm like,
Yeah,
hey, I always tell people, hey, do you want me to use your name? Like that's one of my
right,
number one things. Do you want me to put this out there? Like, hey, if I use this in a data set, do you want me to allow will you allow me to do that? Things like that. It's just what I do in this research. It's not
right,
about like fame or fortune or anything like that. It's just about data, the evidence. It's about trying to prove these creatures, not just
right,
trying to get fame and fortune in this.
right. Yeah, people need to, they need to get their stories out there, and it's just reach out to us. You know, we'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah. And actually, getting on that note, I know we're getting past the hour now, so I know with Tex, I know we're probably gonna have you on later on because heck, we didn't even get into Brown Springs here,
No,
so
and that's a
that's like a whole two episodes right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, we'll be
So
doing part two and three on this kind of stuff. So
yes, so I know I'll have you on in the future with on the channel because you're great friends of the channel. Like you're one of the guys that really got me into this because I think it was your channel that I did my first ever like interview on.
yep, yep.
So it's all about like kind of return the favor. So
Well,
what if
appreciate it,
anyone
man.
did want to talk to you, Tex, or like want to get in touch with you or want to watch your content? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can find us, of course, on YouTube at Texas Front Porch. That's TEX apostrophe X Front Porch, and you we're really on any platform that carries a podcast. So you can find us over there. You can find us on Facebook. You can shoot us an email at paracryptidencounters@gmail. You know, let's see where else we are. I think we're on Rumble. We're on all kinds of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
but you can hit up Jessica at Cryptid Huntress over on YouTube, and Jason McLean on Siri Papers. You can find Bob Van Buren on Van Buren Variety. You can find Rob on Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and reach out to any of us, you know. But and if you can't if you can't find it or you forget it, holler at Ryan, and you know we'll both talk to you. You know.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I have your channel in the description. So if anyone wants to go and subscribe to his channel, please do. Like, go support this man. He deserves it. So down in the description, I have Texas Front Porch link. Let's go right there and press that subscribe button. It's super easy, guys.
Ryan, I really appreciate you having me on. Anytime you want me to come back, you just say the word, brother. I'll be happy to.
Of course, Tex. So with that, this will be a good night, everyone. I want to appreciate everyone for coming on. Everyone that watched live, I really do appreciate you guys. And if you guys can, just try to press that subscribe button, press that notification bell, because we do go live here. So I want you guys in the chat so we can talk to you live. And if you have any questions, let us know. So always, let's come here, talk to us, subscribe, because we always appreciate conversation. So Tex, have a good night, man.
You too, brother.
See you guys.